The discovery. 13-year-old Nell Martinez had been warned about venturing into uncharted territories alone, but the mysterious energy readings from her scanner were too intriguing to ignore. The crimson-tinted cave system on Proxima Centauri's third moon seemed to pulse with an otherworldly light that drew her deeper into its depths. Just a quick look, she whispered to herself, adjusting the reflective patches on her worn expedition jacket. The Galactic Survey Corps would never approve of a first-year cadet exploring solo, but Nell had always been curious to a fault. As she rounded a corner in the azure-lit cavern, her breath caught in her throat. There, sprawled across a carpet of glowing crimson moss, lay the most magnificent creature she had ever seen. Nearly 20 feet long, the dragon-like being possessed coppery brown armor plates interwoven with gossamer wings that shimmered with bioluminescent veins of pink and red. But it was the soft yellow glow emanating from the creature's swollen abdomen that made Nell's heart race. The rhythmic pulsing illuminated the cavern walls like a gentle heartbeat, and she realized with wonder and concern that this magnificent being was pregnant. "Hey! What are you doing in here?" Nell spun around to find Zach Morrison, her fellow cadet, standing at the cave entrance with his scanner raised like a weapon. His expression shifted from annoyance to shock as he caught sight of the dragon. "Is that thing even alive, or are you just collecting weird space junk again?" he demanded. "She's not a thing," Nell snapped, positioning herself protectively between Zach and the creature. "And she's hurt." A low growl rumbled through the cavern, vibrating the moss beneath their feet and sending dust cascading from the stalactites overhead. The dragon's elongated head lifted slightly, revealing amber eyes that tracked their movements with unmistakable intelligence. Zach waved his scanner dramatically. "Look, Captain Bryson will literally disintegrate us both if you're harboring an unregistered xenoform. And judging by the size of that thing, it's definitely class 7 or higher on the danger index." He paused, frowning at his readings. "Wait, there are multiple life signatures. Is it reproducing?" Nell knelt beside the dragon, placing a gentle hand on the creature's warm scales where they yielded slightly to her touch. "She's pregnant," she whispered. "And someone tried to kill her." The dragon's massive head rose abruptly, eyes narrowing to golden slits as she focused on Zach. When she spoke, her voice was a surprisingly melodious contralto despite its underlying rumble. "I prefer the taste of sarcastic boys with receding hairlines, actually." Zach's mouth dropped open as he staggered backward, tripping over a rock and landing hard on the cavern floor. It talks." "Of course I talk," the dragon replied with what might have been amusement. "Did you think I was some primitive beast? I am Varicilia, celestial navigator of the Draconis fleet. Or I was, until my ship was attacked and I was forced to make an emergency landing during atmospheric entry." Nell's eyes widened in wonder and disbelief. This was no ordinary creature, this was a representative of an entire spacefaring civilization, wounded and alone on an alien moon, carrying the next generation of her species within her. And somehow, fate had brought Nell to find her just when she needed help the most. The revelation. Zach finally managed to pick himself up from the cavern floor, dusting off his uniform while staring at Varicilia in a mixture of fear and fascination. "Your ship. You're not actually a dragon, are you?" "Oh, I am very much a dragon, child," Varicilia replied, shifting her massive body with visible effort. "But perhaps not the kind from your Earth mythology. My species evolved on Kepler 22b, where we developed spacefaring technology 10,000 of your years ago. This body is both my true form and my vessel." "That's impossible," Zach muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. "The galactic archives have no record of a draconic spacefaring species." Varicilia's laugh was like distant thunder. "We found it advantageous to keep a low profile when dealing with trigger-happy mammals who tend to either worship us as gods or hunt us as monsters. No offense to present company, of course." "None taken," Nell replied automatically, her mind racing with questions. "But who attacked you? And why?" The dragon's amber eyes clouded with something that might have been pain or rage. "Vexillian mercenaries. They've been hunting pregnant females of my kind for decades. My eggs contain crystals that form naturally around the embryos, waystone that allow for precise navigation through dimensional folds. They're invaluable for faster-than-light travel. Zach's scientific curiosity finally overcame his fear. Wait, you're saying your babies naturally produce hyperspace navigation components? Hence my title, Celestial Navigator, Varicilia confirmed with a bitter edge to her voice. My clutch would have been the pathfinders for our fleet's next great migration. Instead, I'm stranded on this backwater moon with damaged wing membranes, depleted energy reserves, and... She broke off with a sharp hiss of pain as another wave of light pulsed through her abdomen, brighter than before. The eggs are coming, aren't they? Nell asked quietly, moving closer to place her hand on the dragon's flank again. Soon, Varicilia admitted. Which is why I need your help, young ones. The Vexillians track my descent trajectory. They'll be here within hours, and they won't distinguish between dragon sympathizers and innocent bystanders. You could have led with that part. Zach's voice cracked with panic. What do we do? There's no way to hide you, and we can't move you in this condition. No, Varicilia agreed, but you can help me repair my wing membranes. With those intact, I can at least defend myself and my clutch. She extended one massive wing, revealing tears in the delicate tissue that glowed with her life energy. Your repair kits contain biomesh that should bond with my cellular structure. Nell looked at the extensive damage and felt her heart sink. Even with their equipment, the repairs would take hours, time they might not have. There's something else, Varicilia continued, her voice growing weaker. If the worst happens, if they capture me before my young are born, promise me you'll protect the eggs. My species cannot afford to lose another generation to those parasites. As if summoned by her words, a distant rumble echoed through the cave system, the unmistakable sound of atmospheric entry vehicles cutting through the moon's thin air. The Vexillians had arrived. The hunt begins. The rumbling grew louder, accompanied by the whine of energy weapons charging. Nell's hands moved with practiced efficiency as she pulled biomesh from her repair kit, her training taking over despite the terror clawing at her chest. How many ships? She asked, carefully applying the first patch to Varicilia's torn wing membrane. The dragon closed her eyes, concentrating. 3 vessels. Medium assault class. They're scanning for my biosignature. She winced as Nell sealed another tear. You work quickly for one so young. My mom always said I had steady hands, Nell replied, trying to keep her voice calm. Zach was pacing near the cave entrance, his scanner tracking the approaching ships. They're landing at the base, he reported. Multiple heat signatures. Armed troops. He turned to them, his face pale in the cavern's ethereal light. We need to contact Captain Bryson. This is way beyond what 2 cadets can handle. No, Varicilia said firmly. Your captain would follow protocol. He would either turn me over to preserve diplomatic relations or attempt to study me. Either way, my young would be lost. Another contraction rippled through the dragon's body, stronger than before. The glow from her abdomen intensified, and Nell could swear she saw movement within, shadows shifting like small swimmers in a golden pool. How long until they're born? She asked, applying the last patch to the wing. Hours, perhaps less. Varicilia tested her wing gingerly. The biomesh had bonded well, but the membrane was still tender. You've done excellent work, child. This should hold for basic flight, though I won't be winning any aerial battles today. The sound of boots echoed from outside the cave system, still distant, but growing closer. The Vexillians were conducting a systematic search. There's a back entrance, Nell said suddenly. A lava tube that leads to the other side of the ridge. I mapped it yesterday. If we can get you there. I cannot fly far in my condition, Varicilia interrupted. And I will not abandon my eggs when they are so close to hatching. Then we make our stand here, Nell declared with more confidence than she felt. Zach stared at her. Nell, we're 13 years old. We have training phasers and emergency flares. They have actual weapons. They won't expect children to be involved, she reasoned. That gives us an advantage. We know this cave system better than they do, and Varicilia can defend herself if she has to. The dragon's great head turned toward them both. You would risk your lives for my young. For a species you knew nothing about an hour ago? It's what's right, Nell said simply. Besides, you said they wouldn't distinguish between sympathizers and bystanders. We're already in this whether we like it or not. A new sound reached them, the whir of hovering scout drones approaching their section of the cave system. Red scanning beams began to probe the darkness outside. They found us, Varicilia whispered, her body tensing for battle. Nell checked her phaser's charge and tried to remember everything she'd learned in combat training. Behind her, she could hear Zack muttering what sounded suspiciously like a prayer to the Galactic Academy's patron saint of survival. The first drone rounded the corner, its red eye scanning the cavern. When it focused on Varicilia, it emitted a high-pitched alert signal that echoed through the tunnels like a banshee's cry. Within moments, they heard the thunder of running boots heading directly for their hiding place. The hunt had truly begun. Battle and birth. The first Vexillian mercenary to enter the cavern was massive, nearly 7 feet tall with gray-green skin and 4 arms, each holding a different weapon. His red eyes swept the chamber before settling on Varicilia with unmistakable greed. There she is, he growled in accented galactic standard. Secure the clutch mother. Kill the mammals. No. Nell stepped forward, her training phaser raised despite knowing how outmatched they were. She's under Galactic Survey Corps protection. The mercenary laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Little hatchling, your corps has no jurisdiction over Draconis fugitives. Varicilia's response was immediate and devastating. Despite her condition, she unleashed a stream of plasma breath that turned the cave entrance into a wall of superheated gas. The lead mercenary dove for cover, his equipment smoking. The back passages. Nell shouted to Zack. Set off the emergency flares in the lava tubes, create smoke and confusion. As Zack scrambled away, another contraction seized Varicilia. This time, the glow from her abdomen was almost blinding, and a sound like crystal chimes filled the air. They're coming now, she gasped. The eggs, I cannot fight and birth simultaneously. Then don't fight, Nell said, moving to the dragon's side. I've got basic field medic training. Tell me what to do. More mercenaries were trying to flank them through side passages, but Zack's flares had created a maze of smoke and strobing light that made accurate targeting impossible. The confined space worked in their favor, the Vexillians couldn't use their heavier weapons without risking a cave-in. The first egg, Varicilia panted. It comes now. Catch it, they are more fragile outside the womb. Nell positioned herself as the dragon's body convulsed. A sphere of crystalline beauty emerged, translucent like an opal but pulsing with internal light. It was warm in her hands and surprisingly heavy. Beautiful, she whispered, cradling the egg carefully. 2 more, Varicilia managed between waves of pain and effort. The battle raged around them. Zack had found a sniper's position in the upper passages, using his phaser to pin down attackers while Varicilia breathed plasma whenever she could spare the energy. But they were being overwhelmed. The second egg arrived as a plasma bolt seared the air inches from Nell's head. This one was larger, its internal light swirling in complex patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. The navigation crystals are forming properly, Varicilia observed with relief. They will be true pathfinders if they survive. They'll survive, Nell promised grimly. All of them. The third egg was the largest yet, its birth leaving Varicilia momentarily unconscious from exhaustion. Nell found herself holding 3 impossible treasures while energy weapons discharged around her like a deadly light show. Surrender the clutch, the lead mercenary called from his position. Your pet dragon is finished. Give us the eggs and we'll let you children live. Counter-offer, came a new voice from the cave entrance, authoritative and familiar. Captain Bryson stepped into view, flanked by a full squad of Survey Corps Marines in combat armor. Their weapons were trained on the Vexillians with military precision. Surrender your weapons and prepare to be detained for violation of Galactic Protected Species protocols. Protected species, the mercenary leader snarled. Dragons aren't on any protection list. They are now, Captain Bryson replied calmly. As of 20 minutes ago, following an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Seems two young cadets filed a very compelling report about discovering a sentient draconic civilization. Nell looked at Zack, who was grinning despite being covered in cave dust and smoke residue. You called it in. While you were playing midwife to space dragons, he said. Figured the grown-ups might want to know about first contact with a new species. The Vexillians, seeing they were outnumbered and outgunned, began laying down their weapons with obvious reluctance. Varicilia's eyes fluttered open, focusing on her 3 eggs nestled safely in Nell's arms. My children? All safe, Nell assured her. All perfect. The dragon's expression was one of profound gratitude. You have saved not just my young, but potentially my entire species. How can I ever repay you? Be their mother, Nell said simply. Teach them about the stars. New beginnings. 3 months later, Nell stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed dragon sanctuary, watching as 3 young dragons practiced their first flight maneuvers in the moon's low gravity. Their scales gleamed like polished copper in the artificial sunlight, and their wings, so much stronger than their mother's had been when she was wounded, carried them in graceful spirals through the protected airspace. They're beautiful, Captain Bryson commented, joining her at the viewing window. The xenobiology team says they're developing faster than any Earth reptile species on record. They're not Earth reptiles, Nell reminded him with a smile. They're navigators. Born to guide ships between the stars. The sanctuary had been built in record time once the Galactic Council realized the significance of first contact with the Draconis civilization. Varicilia had been joined by other members of her species who had been hiding throughout the galaxy, and the moon was now home to a thriving diplomatic outpost. The Council has approved your request, Captain Bryson continued. You and Zack will be the first human students in the Draconis Navigation Academy. Varicilia specifically requested you as her apprentices. Nell's heart soared. The past months had been filled with wonder as she learned about dragon civilization, their technology, and their deep connection to the cosmos. The navigation crystals that grew within their young weren't just tools, they were living computers that could calculate hyperspace trajectories across entire galactic clusters. What about our regular studies? She asked. Consider this your advanced placement program, the captain said with a chuckle. Though I suspect you'll learn more about space exploration in a year with the dragons than you would in a decade at the academy. Through the viewing window, she watched as the youngest dragon, the one she had been first to hold, performed a particularly complex aerial maneuver. Varicilia had named him Stellaris, which meant, star friend, in the ancient dragon tongue. His siblings, Cosmia and Navigia, were equally magnificent, their personalities already beginning to emerge. Zack appeared at her other side, carrying a data pad covered in dragon script. Varicilia wants to start teaching us hyperspace mathematics tomorrow. Apparently, human brains can actually process their navigation techniques once we learn to think in 7 dimensions instead of 3. Only 7? Nell laughed. I was hoping for at least 12. That comes in the advanced course, Zack replied seriously, then grinned. Can you believe we're actually going to learn to navigate between the stars using dragon magic? It's not magic, Nell corrected, though her eyes sparkled with excitement. It's science so advanced it might as well be magic. Varicilia's voice reached them through the sanctuary's communication system, warm and musical as always. My young apprentices, are you ready for your first lesson in celestial cartography? Coming. Nell called back, already heading for the door. As they walked toward the teaching chamber, Zack bumped her shoulder. You know, when I first saw you in that cave, I thought you were crazy for wanting to help her. And now? Now I think you're crazy for entirely different reasons, he said with a grin. But good crazy. The kind that changes the galaxy. In the teaching chamber, Varicilia waited with her 3 children, their scales glowing softly in the dim light. Star charts covered every surface, not the flat, two-dimensional maps humans used, but three-dimensional holograms that showed the true structure of space-time. Today, Varicilia began, you will learn to see the universe as we do, not as empty space dotted with stars, but as a living web of energy and possibility. Each dragon is born knowing that every star has a story, every planet has a purpose, and every journey has meaning. She gestured to the star charts with one graceful claw. Your species has already begun to explore the nearby systems. But with our navigation techniques, you could visit galaxies beyond your wildest dreams. The question is, are you ready to take responsibility for such knowledge? Nell looked around the chamber at the dragon family that had become her teachers and friends, at her fellow cadet who had become her partner in adventure, and at the star charts that promised infinite possibilities. We're ready, she said without hesitation. And as Varicilia began to teach them the ancient art of reading the cosmic winds, Nell knew that her life had been changed forever by that moment in a cave when she chose to help a wounded dragon. She had discovered that the universe was far more magical and interconnected than she had ever imagined. The young dragons chirped and trilled as they watched their mother teach the human children, their voices harmonizing in a song that seemed to resonate with the very stars themselves. Outside the sanctuary, the galaxy continued its ancient dance, but now it danced to a new rhythm, one that included the friendship between 2 species who had found in each other the courage to reach for the infinite. In the years that followed, Nell would become the first human to earn the title of Celestial Navigator, and her adventures would take her to the far reaches of the galaxy. But she would never forget that it all began with a choice to protect 3 eggs and a wounded mother who had taught her that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the simplest act of kindness. The end.